And welcome to another fun-filled hour of insight and opinion and hilarity and goodwill called Open Court here on NBA TV. The esteemed panel, beginning up here to my far right, is Steve Smith, along with Steve Kerr, Chris Webber, Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, Reggie Miller, and the one and only Shaquille O'Neal. Today we're talking about backcourts, and this is always something near and dear to your heart, Kenny, so I'll start with you.
Okay.
Best backcourt you ever played in, played against?
Playing with Vernon Maxwell was great. I just thought that overall his personality was infectious on the court, and his Mad Max persona.
Infectious, but you didn't catch it.
Oh yeah, you caught it. You needed to catch it, because at times I think, you know, you need to play with a guy. Charles was probably that guy on his team. I could see that, who elevates everybody's intensity in terms of the anger for the other team. And Vernon Maxwell was just that guy. He's going to talk to you. He's going to talk to them. He's going to talk to the bench. I mean, he takes a shot and he tell the bench, catch me because I'm falling in. I mean, he was that guy that was in. And I actually saw, he was the only guy I saw that irritated Michael ever in his career.
How about Reggie? He did that once or twice.
Yeah, but I just, Vernon told him twice. He's like, if you score again, the way you're scoring, I'm going to fight you. And I was like, what do you mean? I said, what? He said, no, he's disrespecting me. He's just scoring at me too easy. So Michael scored again, and he actually swung on him.
Let's go to somebody who was not a guard. And Charles, best backcourt that you played with or played against?
Probably Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, the best backcourt I played against.
C-Web.
I say Isaiah and Joe, or, you know, I played against Nate McMillan and Gary, and they were Gary Payton, and I remember them trapping our guards, and I remember, you know, the running jumps in Seattle, and I just remember defensively, every game it was just something for our guards, and so I really remember their intensity.
We'll just go up the line here.
Best backcourt I ever played with, not that I ever got into the games, it was my rookie year. I never played, but AJ, Jeff Hornacek, and Dan Marley were the three guards in rotation in Phoenix, and they were perfect together. They all did different things, but they were so good individually and together. They were fun to watch.
Do you remember Vernon Maxwell talking to Michael?
I think that was before I got to Chicago, but I remember when Vernon Maxwell ran into the stands and got suspended for about 10 games. So I'm sure there's a lot of Vernon Maxwell.
So what I meant was he was infectious, but you only want to catch a little bit of what he.
Yeah, you only want to catch a little bit of Maxwell. You know what? If you catch the Maxwell flu, it might get you out of the no question.
How about it, Smitty?
You know, I got to give Mookie Blaylock the best backcourt partner I've ever had. Totally opposite than Vern. Didn't say much, went about his business. You know, a thief in the backcourt. And I think watching and playing against, it has to be a trio for me too, Steve, is Isaiah, Joe, but you got to throw Vinnie Johnson in there too. Because the way they were all interchangeable. You know, Joe could go over and move to the point guard spot, where Isaiah could come off screens, and you had Vinnie Johnson. So that was the best backcourt I played against or saw.
Shaq.
Best backcourt I've ever played with, as I said in my book, Shaq Uncut. In stores now. Best backcourt I played with was Penny Hardaway and Brian Shaw. Because Brian Shaw, you know, we had a play that was called a Shawshank Redemption Unstoppable Play, and Penny Hardaway was, you know,
Shawshank Redemption.
Then when I went to L.A., Shaw came, and my second favorite is B. Shaw and Kobe. We still have the same play, Shawshank Redemption.
So, basically, the play, you like Brian because he just threw you the ball.
Threw that lob.
Throw the ball to your big man. Let
him flirt.
28-15, baby.
Backcourts you've been part of, played against. What do you think, Rich?
The best player I played with would be Mark Jackson. It seemed like he had eyes in the back of his head, and all I had to do was really set my man up, and he got me the basketball. Against, to me, was Magic Johnson and Byron Scott. And the reason Byron Scott wasn't a huge name, but he was such a great shooter, and Magic at 6'9", point guard, and the matchups going between both of those players, it was so difficult because of their size. But I would say Magic and Byron Scott.
And to me, the best I never said it, would play against was Michael and whoever was in the backcourt.
You know, as a big fella, a lot of the guards that I played with, the best ball handlers, I don't know if this is true for Shaq and Chuck, but a lot of the guards would come to me and be like, man, I got Mookie, but I got Muggsy Bogues tonight. And when Muggsy Bogues played, I would always have to come up and set picks. So, you know, 94 feet, he would start checking them. So I would actually take the ball out, get it to the guard so I could stay at that free throw line and set picks, and they hated.
He's the toughest. I take that back. Muggsy Bogues is the toughest. He's the toughest on-ball defender I've ever.
My guards always used to be like, man, come up and set a pick on him, you know what I mean, so I can get open, because he just fought.
I thought it was two Muggsys on the court. Because you dribble on this side, and you turn back, and he'd be there. Like, it's like two Muggsys. No,
Muggsy was guarding you, and you got the ball full court, you threw it to the other guy. Yeah. You take it, I'm running up. Lindsey Hunter's another guy who'd get in you. He had this sort of clamp. His arms were long, strong. Yeah. He'd get you in his little zone, and you had to be really careful with that ball. He'd just poke it away.
Mine by far is Mookie. You know, bring the basketball up against Mookie. I saw Mookie win games by getting turnovers in the backcourt.
But you told me last year about Mookie saying when he was going to steal a ball from guys and he would wait.
The one crazy thing about Mookie, he never went out and shoot around. He never went out and worked out. He just stayed and watched tapes from guys counter. Kenny, when you put pressure on him, whether he's going to go around his back, whether he's going to cross over. And he would say, Steve, I'm going to get a steal right now because I've been watching tape after tape. And he get a steal. So me, that's not like saying you're going to get a bucket.
Right.
Saying you're going to get a steal. You can go get a steal when you want to, by far, is Mookie.
Who did the best job at getting you the ball where you wanted it?
That's a great question, Ernie.
Well, that's why you asked.
Let me give you a great answer.
And we'll be right back.
He can't say the guy who's the best player at the position with him.
Probably Hersey Hawkins did a fantastic job of getting me the ball where I wanted it. But actually, it's up to me to get the ball. You know, I hate when you're watching a game and the big guy hangs the guard out to dry. Because, like, when you lock the guy, you're supposed to give a guy a target. If he's supposed to throw it in that area, but if you let him come around and get the ball because you don't lock him up good, that's not on the point guard. But Hersey Hawkins, he says, if I throw this ball, I said, dude, I got this guy. You throw the ball where I got my hand at.
Describe you and Mike Bibby in Sacramento.
Yeah, it was just trust. You know, Mike and I, we had a relationship where we worked out in the summer, and we knew our offense was, you got the ball in certain places, so it wasn't too much trickery. You know, you practiced in the same spots. And with Mike, we just, you know, he would come off the pick and roll or a handoff from me, because that's what coaches wanted me to do. And he would go up, and I could tell he wasn't going to shoot it, and I needed to be ready. He was going to get it back to me. Or, you know, just the fact that he would say, you know, this time Fish is playing it this way, hand it off to me, I'm going to keep going.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yeah.
Jason Williams or Mike Bibby?
I'd have to say Mike Bibby.
Stop it.
Only reason why.
Stop it.
I just want to know.
Stop it.
Because
Here we go.
I'm going to say this. To me, watching you, it was Jason Williams.
Thank you.
Because if it wasn't Jason Williams, there would be no Mike Bibby.
First of all, that's 100% correct.
Thank you.
If it wasn't for Jay Will, it'd be no Mike Bibby. But the reason why I would say Mike Bibby is because when Mike Bibby came and played, he was a little bit more mature. When it was Jay Will, it was me, Jay Will, and Vlade there the first year ever of Sacramento being together. You know, forming this identity, and too much pressure on Jay Will, because Jay Will can play. And the stuff he did with Pat Riley and Shaq, he could do with us, but he would get criticized if this went out of bounds, or if, like you said, if the you know, the receiver didn't catch the pass. So I think it was unfair for Jay Will to be in that position that young. I don't think he was ready for it necessarily. But Mike Bibby being more mature at that time. But Jay Will's the type of guy that'd be like, Webb, go up, you got to get this jumper. He'd be the guy pushing it, and you know, it was fun playing with him. I can't say that.
Okay.
But yeah.
How many times you get hit in the nose with a pass from Jay Will?
I'd probably say maybe once.
Oh, that's all it took.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. No, funny story. The first day of practice, I came to practice, and I didn't want to be in Sacramento. I didn't want to, I had to go in the room and talk to Vlade and Jason. And Vlade's like, I'm telling you, this kid Jason's pretty good. My brother called me, he's like, I'm telling you, Jason's good. Jason came down the fast break. You know, Shaq did something where he bounces it and hit it with his elbow. directly to Vladdy, hit Vladdy in the face, wide open. I was like, this is gonna be fun. They will got the game, trust me. It's just he came in very young though.
That's so you knew about that. Was that in the book, Shaq
Yes.
Uncut?
Chapter 9, page 172.
Ernie, can I just mention one guy's name who I think is one of the most underrated players of our era, who nobody ever talks about anymore, is Mark Price. He was so good. You remember how
Hardest
good?
to check on the pick and roll. He was splitting the pick and roll.
Man.
He created the split.
Yes.
Nobody was
invented the
splitting pick
split.
and rolls.
As a matter of fact, we have an entire segment devoted to more of the under the radar
I thought you
kind of
said
guys
Mark
in the
Price.
backcourt.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's still to come on this edition of Open Court. We'll be right back.
He was good. He wasn't that good.
I'm not as confident in Derrick Rose's return. He's one of my favorite players, and I'll tell you why I'm not. Moving side to side, stopping, and your brain telling you to go up, and you feel a little twinge in that, and then the rehab process.
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee, and down.
Welcome back to Open Court. There may be no highlight or video clip that former players want to see less than the one you just saw right there of Derrick Rose, first game of the playoffs, blowing out his left knee, torn ACL. Reggie, when you saw that happen, when you watch something like that, what's hitting you in the gut?
Well, Kevin and I actually called that game when he went down, and when it first happened, we were saying to ourselves off camera, because the Bulls were up, was Coach Tom Thibodeau going to take out the starters and rest them? But as you know, in a playoff game and situation, you guys want to send statements to teams that they have no chance of coming back. So when he went down and the camera focused on his face, right then and there, because he's never really had a major injury throughout his whole career, AAU, high school, college, whatever. You could see on his face that it was something serious. And obviously when it came out, the ACL and so forth, you feel, because he is such a good, humble kid, it's unfortunate. I think it's going to be a long haul for him, because when it's your first major injury and you don't know what to expect and you're just on the sidelines waiting, it could be very difficult.
The thing about it, too, we've seen him make that same move countless number of times. It's almost a trademark move in the paint that he made, and then to see it end up that way, just crushing. And for a guy whose explosiveness on the floor is that obvious and is that feared and that respected by opponents, do you lose just a degree of that makes you a mere mortal in the eyes of these guys who check you now?
He's a guy who relies on the speed and the explosiveness. I tore my ACL in college. Obviously, I'm a totally different player. I'm a spot-up shooter.
In the World Games with me.
With Kenny, that's right. And it took a full year till I really felt comfortable.
He was dunking crazy.
I was doing all kinds of stuff. It was before the days of videotape, so there's no actual evidence. But it's such a different thing for a guy who, as Kenny mentioned, relies on his speed to get by people. It's also his left knee, which is his jumping knee when he's going off that foot in transition or off pick and roll. I think the surgery has gotten better. The rehab has gotten better. Guys are coming back quicker. Guys are coming back in every sport from ACL. So there's no doubt he's going to be okay in terms of his recovery. But how much of the explosion will he lose, and how can he
How much
adapt
up
his
here?
game? Yeah.
How much up here is really going to... He does that move how many times a game? 20, 30? When he does that for the first or second time, is he always going to be thinking and reverting back to that game one versus Philly? I think more mentally, that's what's going to be his big challenge going forward.
That's a whole nother topic of coming back from injury and the mental aspect of that. And reporters will always ask, are you going to be thinking about it? I said, no, I can't think about it.
When we say mental, I think we really mean confidence. To be able to make that move and just explode, it's mental, but it's about having the confidence. Okay, my knee. But I also think Derrick Rose got a huge advantage myself, because next year to me is a wash.
This coming season.
Yeah, this season's a wash. Because he tore his, I don't see him coming back before the playoffs.
Playoffs?
The playoffs. I mean, it takes pretty much a year. So I'm looking at playoffs. They to me, probably won't get out of the first round.
So if that's the case, you wouldn't bring him back at all then?
I would bring him back.
If they're in the 7th or 8th seed, would you bring Derrick Rose back?
I probably wouldn't, to be honest with you. Because, like, you're still risking it, bringing him back, him being 100%, because he's going to want to play. They probably won't be able to win a round with or without him, because they're going to be a lower seed without. They losing a Zeke also. They lose Kyle Korver. That team's going to be totally different, because he did so much for that team. They lost Ronnie Brewer. So I don't think that team is going to be very good this year. So I might have him sit out the entire year, to be honest with you.
It's definitely a trust factor, as you guys know. I mean, I think for him, the big question is now, do you change your approach to the game? Do you change your game? I mean, is he going to become more of a facilitator? Can he? Can he think the game? Can he play the game, say like a Mark Jackson, if he had to? You know, I think that's going to be a big question for him. But as far as him attacking his rehab, knowing him as a person, watching him, he's going to get back to 100%, I think, strength-wise. But then that trust factor, you know, you're going to think about those moves, Chuck, I think, for him. You know, how do you land, and do you go full speed? And that's going to be the big difference, I think, for Derrick Rose.
How do you put that out of your mind, C-Webb?
You don't. You just have to realize who you are at this point. You know, we all talk about getting older when you start pump faking and you realizing that you can't do it anymore. And unlike you guys, I'm not as confident in Derrick Rose's return. He's one of my favorite players, and I'll tell you why I'm not. When he goes in, if you look at him and Westbrook, two of the most athletic guards we've ever seen in this league, when they plant and they stop and they cut, it's so quick. And I admire the guards for getting older, and Nash for to be able to get around quickness and picks. Big guys, we can just lumber. Moving side to side, stopping, and your brain telling you to go up, and you feel a little twinge in that, and then the rehab process, then defensively, and his game is herky-jerky. It's not like he has a smooth game. His game is very herky-jerky. I hope well for him, because I just look at his legs as being so athletic. How can he keep every time putting that back on him? It's like he's a running back.
What would your advice be to him as he rehabs?
I think today, with the technology that we have and, you know, all the rehab specialists that we have, it's going to take him a year to come back. But I think when he plays, you know, he's not really a thinker. So I think when he makes that first move and he feels that his knee is strong, he'll be, you know, the same old Derrick Rose.
Is there advice you would give a guy coming back from a serious injury like that, a star in this league?
Ask Grant Hill if he's got advice, you know. And when I was in Phoenix with Grant, he made a point of talking to players. In fact, we played Portland one year in the playoffs. Brandon Roy was out with a knee injury. He decided to come back and play. Grant went and personally talked to Brandon and said, you got to think about this. This was my situation in Detroit. I played with a broken foot. It cost me 3 years. I think it makes sense for Derrick Rose to listen to people who have been there.
He's got to take his time. I like what Chuck said, if he's going to bring him back. It depends on really what the Bulls' situation is. I think if they're a top 4 seed, which they probably won't be in the Eastern Conference, do you risk bringing him back? But when it's your first major injury in a very young career, you know, you're coming off being the MVP, the youngest ever in our league, I think the Bulls have to be very cautious of bringing him back, because he is the face of the Bulls now, supplanting Michael Jordan. So you got to be very careful bringing him back and putting him on the court.
The Bulls have to be careful, but Derrick Rose, like
he's going to want to play.
He's in the young stage of his career. He still thinks kryptonite doesn't bother him. Like, in his mind, he still feels that he's going to be the best guard in the league. So until that is proven differently, and he will attack the game probably when he comes back, like, I'm still the best guy in the league, and then if things don't work, then he's going to adjust. But he's going to come back playing the way that he thought he could play.
You're saying him attacking. What do you think Westbrook, Chris Paul,
right, until it doesn't work,
are thinking right now?
Until it doesn't, but right now he's
you think
like,
they're going to take it easy
but
on
he's
him?
looking at them saying, but no, but he's looking at them saying, y'all really couldn't see me when I was there, so I don't think you could see me when I come back.
I agree with you. I think he's going to come back and do great. I just know from sitting out 14 months, you come back that first 2 months, you have energy, you're going to get fatigued, going to tired. And he's the guy, the main guy on the team. I don't know if any point guard has to have the ball as much as him, so I'm like you guys. I don't think he's going to be cautious, but if I'm that ownership,
But this could be a blessing in disguise, too, because as you just said, he needs the basketball in his hands. This is a chance for him to work on other parts of his game, like shooting.
Yeah.
Now, if he can come back and be a more well-rounded basketball player because of this injury, I think that's only going to help him as well as the Bulls.
Interesting story on a number of levels, that of Derrick Rose. Back with more on Open Court right after this.
Another guy that I played against who was probably the meanest shooting guard, Alvin Robertson.
That's my guy. That was what I was gonna say.
Alvin Robertson, I mean, he's almost cut from the same cloth.
Vernon
Maxwell.
Oh, they cut from the same cloth.
Try to keep it going. A 4-on-2, and Andrew Toney. And the Sixers are back on top.
We welcome you back to Open Court, talking about the backcourt, and somewhere along the lines of what Steve Kerr was talking about earlier, he brought Mark Price's name up as maybe not an under-the-radar guy, but maybe not the first name you think of. And how about, where does Andrew Toney rank in this whole big picture?
Andrew Toney is the best player I ever played with. You know, I got
Including Dr. J.
Including Dr. Moses Malone. Those are guys at the end of their career. Wow.
I throw this water on you. Let you get it. Stop it. Come on, I'll throw this water on you.
We're all ears.
Dr. J, Dr.
And Moses.
I'm just telling you, the most dominant player that I played with.
Better than the King.
I'm just telling you, man. Hey, listen, like Kenny said earlier, when I got to Akeem and Clyde, they were older than me. But Andrew Toney, I've always said, he's the best player I ever played with. The best player I ever played against was Kevin McHale. The best player I ever played with was Andrew Toney.
Because?
He was unstoppable. Flat out unstoppable. Just flat out unstoppable. And I'll tell you this.
Boston Strangler.
But the one guy who I say I want to mention who gets lost in all this, Mitch Richmond.
Yeah.
Mitch Richmond to me, and Michael Jordan has said Mitch Richmond was great. He played in Golden State and Sacramento. So, they're not big media markets. Thank God Sacramento's not a big media market. I was taking a shot at Tara August, my bad, Charles.
I thought you were taking a shot at C. Webb here.
No. See, Webb put him on the map.
Let me just say, if you're scratching your head at home a little bit, we are too here. Go ahead, C. Webb. Give me somebody who's a little under the radar.
Wow. I played with Mark Price, and I would definitely say Mark Price. But, wow, I got to go with my point guard, Rod Strickland. I think Rod Strickland was the best finisher under 6'4" that couldn't dunk. He would finish, and it seemed like he would dribble. And you know how Akeem had that one highlight of Akeem dribbling down the court. You knew he really couldn't dribble when he was dunking. That's how even though Akeem the man, but that's how Rod would dribble, and you would never see him like have the handle, and he would have his fingers taped, and he would just finish things. To me, I don't remember ever seeing a guard get as many and-ones on big fellas as a guy that couldn't dunk like Rod Strickland.
Let's go back to Mark Price. You brought him up earlier. Break it down a little bit more into what he brought.
Well, he was a little bit like Steve Nash in that he was the best shooting point guard of his day. Could shoot any shot. As Kenny said, he invented splitting the pick and roll, and the reason it was effective was because he could shoot the runner in the lane. But he could stop on a dime in transition and shoot from three. Mark was much more athletic than people gave him credit for. He was fast, he was strong, and when he ran pick and roll with Brad Daugherty, it was a nightmare to defend.
I think the two guys, C. Webb and Chuck said, Rod Strickland, to me, didn't make an all-star team. To me, I couldn't understand why. When a guy could average 18 and 10 assists, lead the league in assists one year, you knew he couldn't shoot, go under the pick and roll, and he still get a layup. I think Rod Strickland, by far, was a guy that you could scout report. He can't do this, he can't do that, but he had 20 and 10. And then Mitch Richmond, one of the hardest two guards on both ends. I didn't think he got his due, but those are two guys for me.
In our commercial break, and again, this is not a rehearsed conversation, but our producer, Rodney Vaughn, and we're all talking, and we know what the topic is, but nobody knows what anybody's going to say. But Shaq did say, I'm going to drop one on you in response to this question. So who's your under-the-radar guy, big fella?
Scotty Skiles.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Because he was mean, he was tough, he could shoot, he could split the pick and roll.
And he passed it to you.
And he passed it. And he tried to fight me one day in practice.
Who won?
Who you think won? Okay. No, I just
Well, give me more on that. I haven't read the book.
Actually, chapter 2, page 55. But
tell me. But no, I don't want to read. I want to hear from you how Scott Skiles, at what, 6 feet, 6'1",
6 feet,
6'1",
went after 7'3".
We were. I mean, I don't like to say names, but we were partying. I mean, we were in L.A. and D. Scott was partying all night. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, so next day in practice, and Scott Skiles was the leader. He was a real vocalist. So the next day in practice, to me, it was a chill-out day because the game was next day at 8 o'clock. So, chill out, practice, go rest, and then play for the game. So he kind of got in everybody's face. He got in my face, and I was like, my man, I ain't about all that. You better head back. Understand what I'm saying? So he charged me, and I hit him with the same punch that I threw at Chuck, but he didn't duck.
He didn't duck.
No, he didn't duck, so it connected. It was pretty, too, like come ducking.
Yes.
Like I reached out, and they gave him that, and he fell back, and then Larry Kostroviak dunked on my back, and I gave him one of them WWE flips, and then D. Scott grabbed him. You understand what I'm saying?
Who would have got D. Scott from under the table?
Yeah, see, but D. Scott was out partying all night in L.A. At the gate on a Thursday.
Sorry, I asked.
Hacienda Boulevard.
Reggie, who's your guy?
Lafayette Fat
Lever.
Lever. And this was a walking triple-double at the point guard position with the Denver Nuggets. And it's interesting because he never did it in flashy ways, but at the end of the day, you look at his numbers and he would have 18, 13, and 12. And another guy that I played against who was probably the meanest shooting guard, Alvin Robertson.
That's what I got. That was what
Alvin Robertson.
Rebound pulled away by LaSalle. Look out. There's getting a little running. I'll tell you what. This guy Robertson, don't mess with him. I'll tell you, I don't care how big you are. You see him just pick up Michael Williams right off the floor. I'll tell you, Alvin Robertson is a mean, tough hombre.
I mean, he's almost cut from the same cloth.
Vernon
Maxwell.
No, they cut from the same cloth.
You don't know what you're going to get, but I would love to walk into a dark alley with Alvin Robertson.
When we come back, Shaquille O'Neal, Scott Skiles. Cage match.
At the club.
That wasn't me, that was D. Scott.
Told on yourself now. You've already told on yourself.
How you know he was in the club? That means you was there with him.
And then you got the tongue coming at you. You focus on the tongue. Do you focus on the ball? Do you focus on the waist? You looking at the shoes, the glint. You didn't know what you were going to do.
We're back on Open Court. Charles Barkley, Chris Webber, Steve Kerr, Steve Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, Reggie Miller, and Kenny the Jet Smith. Point guard with the best handle you ever saw, Smitty.
Oh, that's a lot.
Handles.
Rayford Austin, Skip to my Lou. God, Sham God.
Yeah, Sham God.
Sham God.
Without question.
God, Sham God. By far. Those are the two guys.
And both play for my brother Vince. But I'm just saying they did when they were young.
Almost made it a show without Vince.
I'm just saying, man. They both, but Sham God, like Ginobili does the move now. He probably perfected it the best way. He throws the ball out with his right hand and grabs it with his left. But you all grew up calling that the Sham God.
That's the Sham God.
That was, and there wasn't a European move.
He played at Providence?
Played at Providence. I saw him play against Mike Bibby in the NCAA tournament. And this was Mike Bibby and Miles Simon. They were the best backcourt in college basketball. He dismantled them. But the only thing, he did the sham guard move where he threw it out and poured it back, and they collided. Mm-hmm. It was the best move other than Kenny Anderson. Yep. Might have the other guy who played for my brother Vince again. Who had, I'm just saying, that had the best handles.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. I'm just saying, it's the truth. That had the best handles I've ever seen was those three guys. But Skip Rayford,
Malou.
Skip wasn't. It was two different people. When he played in the NBA or he played in college, he wasn't Skip Malou. But when he went to, I told him, I said, if you ever brought the real Skip Malou to the NBA, you'd be the biggest endorsement in NBA history, because he still never really collided those worlds and Jason Williams collided those worlds better than he did. But he never brought what he did in Rucker Park and in
he would have been traveling. You travel at Rucker Park.
Man, but the stuff
putting the ball under your shirt and dribbling.
No, he had some other things.
That will not work in the NBA.
He had some other things that
does not work in the NBA.
No, but he had some other things that was just unbelievable. Those three guys.
I'm with you, Kenny. I saw
Kenny Anderson with the Bobby Hurley move.
Good, but it wasn't
college.
Shamgod and Skip.
I got a chance to play with Jay Will and God Shamgod, and I've never seen anybody with handles like this, and I'm going to give Jay Will the nod.
Over Shamgod?
Yes. I would see Jay Will.
Yes. No.
I would see Jay Will.
Yeah.
No.
I would see Jay Will put 5-pound ankle weights on his.
Oh, that's Shamgod do that.
Jay Will did that in West Virginia.
That's what Sham was doing.
Jay Will did that in West Virginia.
Matter of fact, Jay Will got this move. Have you seen this now? That's the Shamgod, you throw it out. You know how you come behind the back, Reggie? Mm-hmm. Jay Will got this.
Yeah.
Jay Will got, I'm going to fake
Everybody
it
in New
behind the
York do
back.
that, man. Come on, are you kidding me?
Full speed?
No, but
You see he made Gary Payton. You see Gary Payton try to strip.
Oh, remember that?
Yeah.
I remember that night, too. He's hard with handles.
Okay.
I'm going with two guys, really, that we all basically know that I've seen what they've done in real NBA games. One would be Isaiah Thomas. And we all remember the highlight in the Boston Garden of him crossing over Danny Ainge, waiting, telling him to come up, hurry up, crossing him over again, and drilling a shot in front of his face.
I'll give you Zeke.
All right, and then the other one, look, it's the freak at 6'9". We all thought we could steal the ball from Magic Johnson. We all have guarded Magic Johnson, but no one could ever get the ball.
His handle wasn't crazy, though.
I love his vision. Come on, man.
His vision was
only
crazy.
Dennis Johnson was the only person that could rip Magic Johnson. I'm talking about
Magic handle was
I'm talking
okay. Body.
Well, everyone has tried it at 6'9", point guard.
But I mean, LeBron's got a better handle than Magic, though.
Oh. Are you kidding me?
You don't have better vision.
Are you kidding me?
Got a better handle.
No way. You
got a better handle. I'm going to say Tim Hardaway was another guy that played in the
UTEP two-step.
UTEP two-step. And
well, if you're going to bring him, you got to bring Pearl Washington because he stole the move for Pearl.
But how didn't we say AI?
Yeah, I was going to say.
AI's was speed. It wasn't handle.
It was speed to me, too.
It was speed.
I'm going to have to agree with Reggie on Isaiah Thomas because Isaiah, if you go back.
Nobody at Lee's, Alabama dribbling, did you?
Derrick Rose. That's the whole city.
wow. That's 5-hour energy.
Hey, but this dude, you had the best handle for power forward I've seen in a while.
Thank you, man.
You did.
When Isaiah Thomas, if you go back and look at those old Pistons when they tried to outscore people, when they had like Kenny Tripucka and those guys, when Isaiah was like leading it, like way up there and scoring, because they went from an all-offensive team to a defensive team. When they had their offensive team with Isaiah and Kenny Tripucka, John Long, and those guys, that's when Isaiah had the crazy handle. I mean, but it was always amazing to me how that team went from all offense trying to outscore people to becoming a defensive juggernaut. When I said defensive juggernaut, that means they tried to kill you every time you went to the basket. I mean, because, man, I tell you, I always tell people, when you played against those Pistons in their heyday, every time you went to the basket, when you got up off the floor, you're like, I think I still got some of my...
Loaded question, man. Loaded question.
Loaded.
Best big man handle, Shaq.
Me.
See? I done loaded. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
To your question, I have a two-part answer. My favorite big guy with handle was Penny Hardaway.
A big guy.
Yeah, big guy.
Big guard.
Yeah,
Big guard.
Yeah, 6'9", big guy, 6'9".
Better than Magic's?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Penny had...
I told you.
Hold on. Yes,
Penny
yes.
was way better than
Yes, cut it out. Yes.
Y'all too young, man.
Y'all
Some of the best handles
young,
was,
man.
man.
We talk about handle.
Man, one of these lights are going to fall on me, man.
And Ernie, to be a little bit different, the best guys with handle are not even in the NBA. Like if you go to the Rucker in the Street League,
Hot sauce,
bone
But
collector.
they traveling, man.
Don't matter. We're talking about handle. We ain't talking about traveling.
And can't have handles and double dribble. If the ref blow the whistle, that's not handles.
Well, see, I count handle. This is why I don't put Magic in the handle category, because he'd find somebody. But when you're double team and in traffic and got to get out with the handle, Magic's not doing that. That's Isaiah. That's Shamgar. That's those guys. They getting out of traffic with the dribble. Magic's gonna be like, oh, y'all stupid enough to put two people on me. I'm gonna find the open man and get him open. Those guys say I'm gonna dribble through it.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, with all the guys that we've talked about, there's really only two Hall of Famers, or at least like perennial All-Stars, and that's Isaiah and Tim Hardaway. Most of the names, it's more about the show than the actual production. That's why I like Isaiah. If I had one guy, I'd take Isaiah because he had both. And whatever he did with the ball, it always translated into something good offensively.
One more thing. Anybody really ever get embarrassed? I mean, really get embarrassed? Somebody cross you over?
Chuck did.
Huh?
Chuck did. I'll talk about it because I know C-Web don't want to talk about it. When Chuck reached and he wrapped around the back, looked at Chuck, and threw it down on his head, and then did a commercial about it.
You know,
that was woo.
No, that's not interesting. He's right.
Yeah,
that was a great play by C-Web. But, like,
Look at Steve.
that was just a great play by C-Web. The only thing I was mad about, because we've all gotten dunked on.
Not like that.
Everybody's got dunked on.
Not like
but
that.
like the only thing that made me mad, I had made in my mind we were running down the court that I was going to foul C-Web. So when I reached for the ball, I was really just going to knock the hell out of him, to be honest with you. And then when he put that ball,
got you.
No, trickery got you. Yeah. So I did, because I was like, okay. Because I look at my mind was where I was like, okay, I'm going to just hit him and knock the ball out of his hand hard, take a foul. And then when I reached down to slap the hell out of him, he put that ball behind his back, and I said, uh-oh. Because I was like, uh-oh. I knew I was in trouble then. I did.
For you, Kenny, was there a guy who, when you saw him bring it up, you felt there was the potential for embarrassment if you're not careful?
Well, embarrassment is like you can't stop him from getting to the spot he wants to.
Or he's going to break your ankle out,
and that guy
35 feet from the hoop, and you're going to be on every highlight.
We mentioned him in another segment. Is Ross Strickland. Like, you just couldn't stop him from getting to the area he wanted to. And the embarrassment came from your teammates and everybody, because it was always playoff games or big games when we played Portland or when he was in San Antonio. And they're like, you cannot keep a guy who can't shoot out the paint? And I'm like, no, because he's keeping his dribble alive so he can keep getting to the paint.
We didn't want to be embarrassed. You're talking about crossover and all that, and that's number 23. And we're talking about handles and all that at 6'4", 6'5". MJ was going to embarrass you because he was quick, he could post up, he could shoot. Coming at you.
In and out, right hand. Don't know if he's going to pull up or keep going.
I mean, and you're backing up, and then he's got the tongue coming at you. Do you focus on the tongue? Do you focus on the ball? Do you focus on the waist? You looking at the shoes, the glint. You didn't know what you were going to do.
I still give Smitty, you had a handle, though.
I appreciate it.
Smitty was up there with the big guard handles.
Yeah, you know the thing I will give Smitty credit? The thing I hate about Smitty, and you guys know this from picking, there's nothing worse. Like, before you play against certain players, you're like, they're going to do this thing. They're going to do this thing. Don't go for this. And it still works. That's the only thing that drove me crazy about Smith. I was like, dude, we went over that on the board. And he do the same thing.
Hey, when you started the move, like when you would start,
right,
you could hear the guys on your team on the bench going, uh-oh, here it goes. And it didn't matter. Oh, here it goes. And then, boom.
I mean, I come from big guards, like you said, Magic. But Penny Hardaway, when I got a chance to face another guy 6'8" with real handles, Penny was one of those guys I could see, Kenny, you picking up full court, that it didn't bother.
It didn't bother him, no.
I'm a big guard. When a little guard came, I'm still going to turn my back. He never turned his back, which tells me you can handle the basketball. At 6'8", with Muggsy, with little guys, when you don't turn your back, that's true handles. Penny never turned his back when guys was pressuring up 94 feet.
Getting a handle on the best ball handlers here on Open Court.
I met a guy named Terry Catlett. You remember Terry Catlett?
Oh, yeah.
Catman.
So
Catbone.
Yeah, so Terry called me in the office and said, hey, you want this number, you got to give me 50 stacks. I was like, 50 what? Like 50 stacks. So I chose 32 in Orlando.
And for more, you can check us out on NBA.com. We welcome you back to Open Court, and I guess this is the numbers game. Explain to me numbers you have worn. I don't care if it's when you were first playing up until the NBA. Numbers you wore and why you wore them, Shaq.
Well, I played for a lot of teams, so it's going to be a long answer.
Oh, my God.
Well, we want the Cliff Notes.
We'll wait.
Is that in here?
If you had the Cliff Notes, you still fail the test.
Is it in here?
Well,
Yes,
listen,
right there on that page.
if you want to be, why don't you give us the numbers when you could play? That'll shorten the list.
Strike 4.
Was that after my 8th year when I passed you up?
Oh, nice. Wow.
Anyway.
Where were we?
Anyway.
Really?
No, when I was growing up, I was a Patrick Ewing guy. Patrick was my guy. You know, I liked the way he played. He was mean. He was ferocious. He was my guy. So when I was in high school, I chose 33. LSU, 33. When I got drafted by Orlando, I also wanted 33, but I met a guy named Terry Catlett. You remember Terry Catlett?
Oh, yeah.
Catman.
So
Catbone.
yeah, so Terry called me in the office and said, hey, you want this number, you got to give me 50 stacks. I was like, 50 what? Like 50 stacks. So I chose 32 in Orlando. So when I left Orlando.
You was a businessman first.
Yeah, businessman. I'm like, I'm not paying you 50, I give you 20. He's like 50. So when I left Orlando and got traded to LA, 33 was the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Couldn't do that. So I decided to go 34. Where'd I go after 34? Oh, Miami. When I got traded to Miami, Alonzo wore 33, and I didn't want people to forget about what he did in Miami, so I chose 32. Then when I went to the great Steve Kerr, what'd I wear? I wore 33. I wore 33 because Amari had 32, right? Or did I wear 32? I don't remember.
Your career, don't you?
I don't remember. It's a long career.
I'm with you. The Cliff Notes would have
No,
been
He was a
nice.
terrible GM. He didn't remember.
No, actually, you know what?
My department.
No, actually, you know what? I wore 32, and then when I got traded to Cleveland, I wore 33, and then when I went to Boston, before I got shot in the leg. See, I'm already saying it before you say it, Chuck. I decided to wear 36 because it was my 6th team, so I decided to wear 36.
But if you had a choice, 33 was your number.
Yes, 33 was my number.
For Patrick. Okay.
I got, my number's always been 34, and I just got it because that was the only number they had in high school.
Really?
It had no sentimental value. It was just the last number that was available.
Briefly, you wore 32 for Magic.
Well, you know, because Magic, I always tell people, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan, we owe them a lot as an NBA family because I think those two guys, Magic and Bird, saved the NBA. And Michael took it to a whole nother level, so they made me a lot of money. So when Magic, when Magic announced he had HIV, I wanted to honor him, and Billy was kind enough to let me wear 32 for 1 year because it was already in the sky.
Right. Or in the rafters.
In the rafters. Do that again, Ernest.
It was just hanging in the sky.
Most of the time.
There's a jersey in the sky.
Playing indoors most of the time. C-Webb, you've had some interesting choices.
Yeah. High school, I had 44 because of Derrick Coleman. Then I had 34 because of Chuck.
What?
High school, yeah, he was my, you know.
What?
Chuck, yeah, I had 30.
Can't come between us. Can't come between us.
But it's funny because I got a story just like you. So I get, and Larry Johnson wore 4. My best friend Kevin wore 4. So I wanted to take that to the NBA. Big fellas was wearing big numbers. I wanted to wear a small number. But I get to Washington after being traded, and Scott Skiles says to me, I need $300,000 for this 4.
Man.
300,000?
And I wore number 2 that year. That's the only year I wore
prices
another
went up,
number.
huh?
But he hit me that year, and I was like, dog.
Yeah,
You got
okay,
robbed.
Scotty.
Derrick Catlett got robbed.
I was like, yo, you know, you sure you're gonna do this? He was like, yeah, you give me a number. I was like, nah, that's cool.
300.
Right, 300. Yeah, make sure.
Okay, Scotty.
Come on, but he had pictures of you too or something? I give you these pictures and this number. $300,000.
These tapes.
That bodes well for team chemistry.
Exactly. Yeah. We won 13 games that year.
You're up next, Steve.
I was 24 in high school, and I asked for that when I got to Arizona in college, and it was taken. So I went with 25 because I had two high school teammates, a guy named Kevin Stewart, who played at USC, a guy named Leroy Smith, who went to Cal, and they both took 25. And so it was kind of a solidarity thing. We all three of us had 25 in college.
Oh, that's so cute. That is so cute.
You guys are ridiculous, man. That hurts. That hurts.
Y'all get matching earrings too?
Tattoos, actually.
All right, Chet.
Well, I had 30 my whole career except for 1 year in Atlanta for like 15 games. But 30 was Bernard King. I was from New York. The BK Broiler was getting 50 points back to back. He was that guy that everybody wanted to be like. And so 30 was my number because of Bernard King.
31 came from?
Well, everyone assumes that 13 is the bad luck number. So it's very simple. I just wanted to flip it around. I'd been 31 since college and my whole pro career.
Was Cheryl 31? Same.
I don't know if
Same mentality.
I don't know if that's her mentality.
But did you have it because she had it as well? Did you even
We
think
wanted
about
to keep
that?
it in the family.
Oh.
No.
A lot of.
Thank you.
How about Daryl when he was with the Angels?
Thank you.
Did
31.
Daryl
Yeah,
was
31.
Yeah.
So it's more of it's a family number.
It's a family affair.
It's a family number. You like
Warm and
30.
fuzzy
He might have
kind
been
of a
32
segment
for a
here.
year, but
Really nice.
I think 31 kept it in the Miller family.
Really nice. That's another edition of Open Court, and we'll see you again next time. Our open court discussion, bragging rights.
I like that.
Who did you take on your first date?
I wrote Halle Berry a letter. And she wrote it back.
You really think she signed the picture?
And I took the picture on a date and showed all my boys.
I took her to the senior prom. That's the only date I ever went on in high school.
So basically, if you didn't have any money, you'd never be having dates.
Watch Open Court next Tuesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, only on NBA TV.